Hello everyone. So last time we talked about the reasons why do we use literature in teaching English. We also talk about the criteria in selecting suitable text in teaching English, and also the levels of task and text that we're going to have in teaching English through the use of literature. On your Module 2 class, we're going to talk about the skills that we're going to harness in teaching English through the use of literature. So what do I mean by the skills? Well, everything class that we're going to teach as a teacher, we have to be mindful of the skills that we're actually harnessing or giving to our students or uh, yielding to our students. No? So what are those skills? Well, definitely the reading, the writing, the listening and speaking skills of the language. So those are the things that we're going to talk about today. Literature and reading. Well, class, reading is a really good teacher, especially in terms of teaching language or specifically as in English language. Um, for you to better understand, I'll give you an example. Well, most of the people learn their English speaking skills through watching movies and yes, listening to English movies. However, through the use of reading class, you will not only learn how to speak the language itself, but as well as on how are we going to speak the language correctly. So there's a difference, no? So therefore, reading class is a very good way for us to know or to learn the language. And through the use of literature, since literature is a very good source for reading materials, well, definitely class, through the use of literature, we can actually make our skills or yield our skills in terms of reading more or much more better. Literature and writing. Well, class, literature is a very good source of motivation. And thanks to this motivational power of literature, we are actually encouraged to write something. And for the reason why we are encouraged, or thanks for being encouraged to write, we are actually trying our best to write. And through that, without noticing, we are learning more about writing, especially on the higher levels of elementary grade schoolers. Literature as a model for writing. Actually, there are three main kinds of writing wherein we can actually use literature as a model of writing. Well, first is the controlled writing, second one is the guided writing, and the third one is the reproducing model. So let's talk about first the controlled writing. What do we mean by this? Now, when we talk about controlled writing class, well, it only means rewriting or typically rewriting a particular article or phrase. These are most common to lower grade levels wherein we are asking them to rewrite a specific sentence for them to learn how to write. No. And the second one is guided writing. When we talk about guided writing class, it actually we are asking our students to summarize a particular story, no? And as a model for writing, they have to summarize a particular short story. So that is the guided writing. In reproducing model class or reproducing the model, well, it can be paraphrasing, it can be summarizing, or it can be adaptation. What do you mean by paraphrasing? When we talk about paraphrasing class, we're actually asking our students to change particular words. However, it should be or the main meaning should remain the same. That's paraphrasing. When we talk about summarying works, well, from the term itself, summarizing or making a particular literary work short. And the other one or the last one is the adaptation. When we talk about adaptation class, well, it is actually transferring or making one particular literary kind into a new one. Let's say, for an example, a poem. If we're going to make an adaptation of the poem, we're going to make that particular poem into a story. Or the other way around, like we are going to make a poem out of a story that makes a narrative poem. Something like that. Literature as a subject matter for writing. Plus, when we talk about writing alone, it is actually nonsense because writing alone is simply as a writing, letters, nothing more, nothing else. But thanks to literature class, we can actually have a topic for writing. And that is the main reason why do we have to learn how to write, is to say something or to talk something about a particular topic. And most of the time, if we don't have something to say, well, we do need a topic for conversation, and literature is always there. Always something to do with literature. And thanks to literature, most of the teachers has something to say, or some task to give to our students. Just imagine, class, if you are already a teacher and you're going to ask your students to write something. Write something about what? Something about yourself, something about your mother, something about your family or your cousin. It is boring, class. Try to ask your students to write something about a short story, and definitely you will have a very good result. Alright, so the next two topic is writing or about literature and writing out of literature. So what's the difference between these two? When we talk about writing on or about literature, well, it is the same thing as writing using literature as a subject matter. So that is writing on or about literature. Now, we're going to use a particular short story to talk about and tell us something about it, something like that. The other one is writing out of literature. Well, writing out of literature means you're not going to write about the particular literary work, but you're going to write something that may actually help out a literary piece. Let's say, for example, a very good example of this is asking your students to make a proper ending for the story. Most of the stories tackled in high school class is an open-ended story, so it is much better to use that one on high school levels. However, in terms of elementary class, most of these stories are actually properly ended. So, meron agad ending. So, medyo mahirap gawan siya ng paraan sa elementary. However, class, we can try out this writing out of literature by asking our students if they like or did they like the ending of the story. If not, try to make a story, the same story, but different ending, something like that. And also, if they are not happy with a particular character, ask your students to write a letter addressed to a particular character and tell him or tell her what do you feel about him, something like that. So that is writing out of literature. Remember, writing on or about literature is using literary work as a subject matter, and writing out is when you're actually using literature or helping literature or that particular literary work on something that you actually want to be or actually you want to have in that particular article. Literature, speaking and listening. When we're going to teach class is the skills of speaking and listening through the use of literature. We cannot actually separate them. We cannot teach speaking and listening separately. Why? Well, most of the children, well, all of them, cannot actually pronounce words without properly hearing it from their teachers. Do you get the point? So paano nga naman nila sasabihin isang salita kung hindi nila alam kung paano sabihin yun? Siyempre, they have to hear it first from the teacher itself. No? Now, class, if you want more proof, most of the pipe, yung mga ganon, most of them actually have problems in terms of hearing. No? Meron silang hearing impairment. No? So, yun. So, may sakit sila sa pandinig, kaya they cannot produce the sounds. The same goes here. Alright, going back, well, there are different tactics or strategies that we can actually make to teach our students on how to speak and how to listen properly. I will actually discuss that later on. Alright, so the first strategy is oral reading. If you can remember, class, way back on your elementary days, our teacher actually asked us to stand up and get our book or read a particular article, a short story perhaps, and they asked us to read it loudly. Why? Why do they ask that? Well, simply because for us to identify Are we wrong or are we not doing it properly? And once we've read it incorrectly, our teacher right away correct us. And once the teacher corrected us, we actually try to repronounce the word and go ahead again to the flow of the reading. So, para bagang pag sinabi ng, halimbawa, let's say for example, the word is umbrella and we actually utter the word umbrella as umbrella. So, the teacher right away will correct us, said, it's umbrella. So, the tendency is we're going to repeat the word. So, umbrella, something like that. So, oral reading class is the first technique that most of our teachers uses for us to know how to speak properly. At the same time, we are actually having our skill for listening harnessed or being yelled. Drama and dramatization. So, pag-isahin na lang natin itong dalawang to. So, pares lang naman kasi sila. When we talk about drama class and dramatization, it is the full showcase of teaching our student the four skills that we have to yield from them. No? Speaking, listening, reading, and writing. So, why do I say this? When we're going to have a classroom drama or classroom mini play, it requires us to have an inspiration. So we have to read. No? And also, well, let's set aside that one. Well, also, before we're going to have a theater play or a mini play in a classroom, there should be a script. And a script should be tasked to a students for them to write some to write the script that they're going to use. Adaptation from a particular story. No? So, remember class, last time we talked about adaptation in writing for literature. And also, reading because they're going to read the script for them to speak. And listening because they have to listen to their group mates or to their classmates for them to know their cue, or it will serve as their cue for them to speak or for them to know if it's already their time to speak. Diba? So, dramatization class is the complete package in terms of teaching our students to yield the four skills in teaching English. Ano? And of course, through the use of literature, because we're going to use adaptation in this one. From a specific short story, let's make a script out of it and then dramatize in the classroom.